All right.
Cool.
I think I'll do the short introduction now.
Hold on, wait.
I miss in-person book tours. I really
Yeah.
Hey man, listen.
All right, may have to mute.
If you have an opportunity to control the stage, why wouldn't you?
Oh God, he's muting. All right. Hi everybody. Welcome to Boswell Book Company's virtual event series. It's 4,187 days of us being in business. We are so honored to welcome back Danny Gardner, the writer, screenwriter, former Def Jam comedian, publisher of Bronzeville Books, and I don't really have time to probably list everything else that he's done. He visited Milwaukee for Murder and Mayhem, and also had a wonderful evening at Boswell Books for his first novel, A Negro in Ofe. And he said, as he said to me, he said, "I will be back." And he is virtually. Tonight, he is in conversation with Nick Petrie, the author of the Peter Ash series. Welcome both of you here. Unmute, I mute. Thank you so much for.
I'm unmuted, I do believe. I'm unmuted.
There we go. Well, thanks for coming, Danny, and it's nice to see you again.
Yeah, you know what, man, I gotta tell you, Nick, it was such a long walk, man, and it took such travel time, but I rose up and met you halfway, and I just want to know that's probably just how America should get to working now. So thanks.
Well, I think it is how many Americans are getting to work now. So to start us off, why don't you tell us a little bit about this new book of yours called Ace Boon Coon?
Okay, all right. So normally the Tales of Elliot Caprice as a series is set in turn of the migration, we'll call it, Chi-Town, right? And so you're looking at 50,000 people a week showing up from the South. Everybody's got their money saved up. It's a teeming thing. Like think of Westeros in Game of Thrones, but it's the Chi, right? And at this point in our main protagonist, Elliot Caprice's life, we're 6 months past him rescuing the family farm for his Uncle Buster, because they grow string beans out in Chicagoland where Frank Nitti grew dead bodies. And so Elliot's trying to save the farm from the bank that's ever waiting for them to lose it, and lose it to them. And there's a drought in Illinois at around the same time. It's actual fact. 1962-3 was terrible on area crops, and there were a lot of labor struggles between immigrant groups and veterans of World War II. And so Elliot's got to get pulled off of the farm at a time when we don't know if the string beans are coming in, because a couple of murders from his past have come back to haunt him, as he realizes that the competition for the University of Illinois Chicago campus project is filled with a whole lot of dirty money. And some of that dirty money is from his buddies in both the Jewish underworld and the Black underworld in Chicago during the 50s. So his bedfellows, being as strange and close to him as his kinfolk, he's got to return to Chicago, unravel these murders, and try to find out where the deception in the university project is as it relates to the civil rights movement that's burgeoning in Chicago at the same time. So, and then the cops are still after him because they mad. And, nobody digs him because he's always at the wrong place at the right time. And he never minds his business, even though he tries. So everybody remembers they all got a bone to pick with Elliot, and he's stuck in Chicago in the 50s while they're trying to build UIC and pushing anybody off their land they need to in order to get that campus built. So I bring all of the races and all of the political factions together to fight over the University of Illinois Chicago campus. And I pulled out some civil rights heroes to make them kind of action adventure-y, and I hope y'all like it.
Would you read a little bit for us just to kind of give us a taste for it? I think the thing that we'll talk about this in a bit, but just the flavor of this, the feel of this book kind of in your mouth, I'm crazy about.
You know what? I gotta tell you, I'm happy to do that, but I bet y'all looking at this forehead shine from off me. I'm gonna change seats. How about that? Is that better? I bet y'all was killing you like, pew! I just gotta. Okay, I would love to share chapter 1, if it's all right. Just jump right into it. It's short, little action. Okay. I've been doing this a lot this week. So I'm Danny Gardner, and this is chapter 1 of Ace Boon Coon. Chapter 1. The sky above the tavern hadn't darkened. The familiar smell of ozone was missing. but his bum left shoulder never lied. Sure enough, distant thunder roared. He hoped for heavy rain that would head Southville way. The farm needed a good harvest to make up for the 3-year stretch of bad that came with Estes Kefauver's war on organized crime. That's why he split the week between attorney Michael Robin, for whom he served process, and his uncle, Buster Caprice, for whom he grew string beans, wax beans, and anxious. When he wasn't serving that mean old man, Elliot Caprice worked hard dragging stumblebums into the courthouse, and he needed the dough to make the mortgage. He needed a good crop of string beans to make amends. Before he opened the door, he tapped the court documents underneath his raincoat twice, taking extra care. He didn't want to disappoint the fiery young complainant who arrived to the small, one-license firm, 3 beige babies in tow, none older than 7. In one hand, the coupon for expert advice Mikey ran in the Chicago Daily Defender. In the other, a summons on her wayward beau she wanted to appear in court for bastardy. She put the entire thing together pro se, as every attorney, court clerk, and social worker she encountered treated her like a whore. I'm not respectable like Miss Ann over there. She pointed to Elaine Critchlow, the young Negro paralegal, the mountain climber, who clutched the pearls that made the point. Mikey Robbins stepped in, of course, as he was the crusading race attorney. She waved him off. She didn't trust him off the bat. Her errant beau was white, and up until then, all white folks did was stick together. At least you only half, she said to Elliot, as if that half wasn't listening. Ma'am, I see them writing about you in the papers. I like how you walk and talk at Caprice. She lowered her voice, as if it wasn't everyone's business by then. I know where he lives, she said, with his other old lady, the white one. You could try to serve him there. Perhaps a public place. He spends most days drinking at the 19th Hole Tavern out in Rockford, but he's surrounded by white boys. Ain't we all? She shoved the court papers in his mitt, followed with a wad of cash. I paid you good money, she said, shaking his hand firmly. Don't screw me over like everyone else. Wouldn't think of it. He couldn't imagine a golfer had ever been near the place, or any of the patrons had a tee time to make. A few dusty odes to the game hung on the walls, old clubs, championship plaques. It was the other glories on display, the Anglo-Saxon trappings. Framed tartans, erringo brow over the door arch, that was the tell. Lots of fellas wearing flags on their olive drab and scorn on their faces. Staring into a long neck of old style sat his quarry, blue flannel shirt, dock pants, work boots, as if the region gave him a reason to get all that get up on in the morning. Area military contracts were discontinued. Agriculture programs were cut by the War Department. An entire community tooled to do one thing, reduced to a legion of day drunks at the stroke of a politician's pen. What you having, fancy pants? The bald bartender with the eye patch and forearm tattoo had a point. Elliot was slightly overdressed in his charcoal double-breasted, powder blue shirt and gray tie. He meant to visit the bank later that day to ask for an extension on the mortgage to conserve cash flow through harvest. He wanted to look strong walking back in after clawing the farm from the grip of those bastards. Elliot scanned the top shelf and found a bottle of bourbon he could stand. A couple of fingers of Four Roses. The bartender snorted, found a glass, and poured Elliot his drink. Want me to put a cherry in there for you? The functional drunks all snickered. Elliot downed the shot and tapped on the rim of the glass. Cyclops poured another. That's quality hooch there, mister, said the fella in flannel. He was reading some sort of pamphlet printed on white paper. Best this joker got anyway. Best any of us can afford. Times are hard, with the furniture mills closing and all. The furniture mill's been closed going on 3 years, haven't it? Elliot sipped his second pour slow as he sized up the mark. Not too big, but wiry, and young enough to put up a fight. And pissed. That part Elliot understood. I'm waiting until the Ford plant they promised during the election opens. Promises. Good work if you can get it. Better be lined up early. An older drunk, seated by the wall of Irish heritage tchotchkes, belched. You know the niggers will be lined up. I blame the big shots for hiring them for cheap, DeMarc said. He waved his pamphlet. Right, mister? DeMarc, that was to tell Elliot wasn't made for Negro. The bar was dark. DeMarc was drunk. I guess things are pretty good in your line, friend. No shortage of work lately. What do you do? Elliot finished his pour and stood. Douglas Hargray of Rockford, Illinois. DeMarc's bloodshot eyes went wide. Wait a second, he said. I know you. Elliot reached his hand into his pocket. Hargray leaped from his bar stool, which fell to the floor. Don't kill me. Wait, what? Elliot waved off the assertion. He used to come around with this real tough guy, a drunk said. Saw my dad almost every payday for a year. Another tough stood and walked up behind Elliot. I got an older brother, still can't walk good, he said. He grabbed Elliot from behind. Another brandished Hargray's felled bar stool. Cyclops, the bartender from Olympus, pulled a baseball bat. Let him go, he said. I can't have that in this joint. This is Izzy Rabinowitz's nigger. He collects for the Roseland boys. You tell that to the Turk, Cyclops said. That's who I gotta pay up to. Oh, Christ on a frickin' cross, Elliot said. Hargray took off at a full sprint out the door and onto the rainy Rockford streets where the gutters ran full. I'm gonna carve some numbers out of your hide, half-breed, Bear Hug said, through the foul breath of a man who long ago gave up on himself. Enough for the vig, I pay up to your Jew. Elliot would have rolled his eyes at the assertion, at the mention of Izzy, but he had to keep one eye on the asshole with the stool. The bottle of Four Roses was still on the bar. He stomped Bear Hug's foot hard with his heel and threw his head backward, smashing the drunk's nose. Once free, he grabbed a bottle of bourbon, caught the bar stool in his left hand, and struck hard with the right. Both men went down hard. Elliot grabbed his hat off the floor and took off after his mark. Hey, the bartender said, you owe me for a bottle. Elliot reached into his pocket and tossed out a $5. Keep the change, he said, and your mouth shut. And that's chapter 1.
So talk to us about Elliot. So he's a really rich and complex character. Who is he? What's his backstory?
Elliot is he was born shortly after the Red Summer riots in his uncle's house in a spare bedroom. And his mother was someone that neither one of them knew. She arrived shortly after the end of the Red Summer riots, which claimed thousands of Black lives in Chicago, Elliot's father being one of them. And you know, this adventurous woman who did not identify as Black. She came upon Elliot's uncle with child, and within a few months, Elliot is born breech, and within a few months, Mama's gone. And so Elliot Caprice is growing up in the shadow of a burgeoning Chicago, that he's watching people pass through his small town of Southville, Illinois, to make it to Chicago on the migration. And you know, a little boy stuck on his rural uncle's porch, watching the world pass him by, he'll get an idea soon enough. But there really wasn't much for you to do in Chicagoland back in the day, but get involved in municipal matters a crime if you're Black. And much like my grandfather and a lot of men who came to Chicago from the South during the migration, you know, in the beginning, Elliot had to choose crime because, well, that's what the Chicago outfit had for you in Chicago at the time. But much like the other men of my family, the firefighters, the cops, soldiers, the military men, the uniform calls to him. And so he's forever conflicted. He's half black and he's half white, accepted by neither, but carrying hope for both. He is a good person, can't seem to stay out of other people's business, even though he resolves to every time. He is a self-motivated person to a fault. And he's more of a fix it for you than listen to you talk about it for too long. But he also knows what you need when you need it. And he also knows how to deliver the hard truths to you in a way other people can get you to hear it. And I think it's because he's made up of so many things that America is already. He's perhaps not immune, but like in the sense of being above it all, as say Columbia, goddess of America, is above it all, like 10 feet above it all, pointing that way, saying, find yourself, He's always chasing after something he'll never catch, which is what I think America would do. Because America's a mulatto just like Elliot and me, right? We're both half and half black, half white. So, I'm thinking it's a resonant, it's sort of like a cone, like not even a cone, more like a seashell, It's like I got my ear on it and saying something, but it's really just the life of, it's Elliot Caprice is an encapsulation of what a black life is worth to more than just black people in 1950s Chicago, at a time when America needed 1950s black Chicago to become America of the rest of the 20th century. And he just happens to look like my grandfather, and he just happens to look like some of my uncles, and he reminds me of the guys that I knew growing up, and he's certainly a product of, the great state of Illinois and the great city of Chicago. Go Bears. Sorry, I know y'all's got something going on, but go Bears. Sorry.
Well, he's also, so he served in a tank division, right, in the Second World War.
Yeah, I think it was Panzers, man. It was no, it was Hellcats, and it was Patton's 781st, and Elliot enlisted because it was just a level up, man. He went from being involved with gangsters when he was a little kid, and there's a uniform there, and then he went and got himself in college after that and had him the speech team uniform and the intramural, track team uniform. And then that doesn't work out for him, and he can't wear those Dickies his uncle wants him to wear anymore. And he certainly ain't going to be a boot black or a street sweeper because he at least half white, so somebody got to respect him, right? And so he's just angry walking past the train station after he gets beat up by the police after he wins a speech team competition. And I mean, that could be some Def Comedy Jam in there. I don't know. But then essentially it's just, look at these black men. Look at these uncompromising black American men who don't have to be rousted up from out of the bar to go enlist in World War II. It's the enfranchisement part of it, right? My grandfather, he put that on me as a little kid, and I wrote that into Elliot, and your Ace Boon Coon is your one who knows you the best and can say the worst things to you, and you listen to him. And, aside from my man Disco Rom Shaw, who I dedicated the book to, that was my grandfather, John Gardner, and John Layman Gardner Sr. And, he always wanted me to set myself apart. He was obsessed about me setting myself apart from other blacks. When I did Def Comedy Jam, he was mad. He's like, everybody's funny, Danny. Them computers, though, young man. Like, I had to hear that, It's the computers that set you apart. I'm like, I can't do both? But it was. And so Elliot wants to set himself apart like I do. But then when he gets too far away, he realizes he should stay and help. So I never really get too far from black folks. I take some field trips out to do cool stuff like this, but I'm always trying to find a way to be good to all people. And I think that Elliot struggles with that. And that gives me some tension, right? Because if I stick a car chase and a shootout in there, in between some of this, some of this real tension, in the mind of someone who's black, they'll know they're not alone, and they don't feel like they're not, the thing that's happening eternally, it's not a vacuum you're in. Like, there is a collective consciousness, and many of us feel this way. And then, if you're not a black person, you'll learn to love black folks, because I write black folks real good, so y'all love them and love us, So Yeah, and if you read an Elliot Caprice novel and you get to know Elliot, then you can say it's not the first time you got to know a Black person intimately. That helps.
So there's a lot of Elliot and you, really, or a lot of you and Elliot, I should say. I mean, it's a something that everybody wants to. It's the question everybody asks when you have a protagonist that feels like a real person.
Yeah.
But you know, the way that you talk about this, you've put a lot of your own history into Elliot's life.
Yeah. You know, there's a 50-year clip, man. I mean, I'm quite exposed. I'm rather exposed with this book. You know, like it hit Kindle, and I heard from Washington Heights and the Chi, man. I heard from a lot of people, and it's not a Romany clef or anything. I wouldn't want to have you believe that, but I did feel as if, okay, someone very special to me, who has a deep ability to influence me more than most, said, Danny, you're a true artist, but when you're a true artist, people can tell when you're holding back or you're lying. And, you know, I was kind of like dancing around it with a Negro and an Ope and then my stand up. And, you know, I would like put a lot of who I am authentically into my work, but I wouldn't say anything. And I realized I wasn't living authentically enough to be able to make a run for it the way I wanted to. But then, you know, I got into crime fiction and I started feeling a little less like neither fish nor fowl, you know? And, you know, that is certainly Elliot. Like, you know, I'm genetically half Black and half white, so says 23andMe. So I'm looking for my reparations and I'm trying to be president like that. So, but, you know, I mean, it just happened. I mean, I don't think anybody would have called a Scots-Irish a white guy like 40 years ago, but now I got the lotto, you know, so it's just
Or
more
the Italians before that, or
no, I got a lot, you know, and that's what my work covers, right? And at time, like my work covers the yearnings of my parents and my grandparents, which kept me not going to baseball practice, but Operation Push meetings for little young Black kids who look like this, right? Like, you know, my people were driven at the time where it was up to me to fulfill their promise, but America wasn't ready yet. And my grandfather was saying, set yourself apart, set yourself apart, set yourself apart. And he's leaning on me, right? And it's education. I look like a bum. Pull your pants up. You know, I got to do that stuff, right? But then I went out on a limb and I violated my grandfather's wishes and I did Def Comedy Jam. And it was a groundbreaking television series that exposed people to Black humor, new forms of Black literature. We have, you know, Def Poetry Jam after that. There's like a whole new movies and TV series. And I was at the heart of that. And my grandfather missed that. And so it's perspective, it's frustrations, all of the angst of a suburban Black kid like Elliot is there, and all the angst of a suburban white kid is inside Elliot, but he still got to deal with shootouts, and he still got to deal with people trying to take advantage of him because he's not white. He's still trying to take advantage of policing that's unfair, and he's still trying to find relief from crooked policing, and you know, it's just, you know, and then they let you in the door, Nick. Like they, you know, when you look like me and you sound like me, they let you in the door, but then when you get inside, it's hollow because, you know, there's no way for you to culturally impart the reasons why it made you good enough to be in the door in the first place, because it's no Blacks, like unwritten, but over the door. And so like a bow, my own yearnings, you know, I pull it back and I couldn't hold back anymore. I just couldn't. You know, it's just important for me to document who people like me were for this 50 years. So that in the next 50 years, the Black Chicagoan may not be erased. And what the Black Chicagoan meant to the Commonwealth will one day be celebrated. And if you see the Black Chicagoan, then I'm pretty certain I can get my grandfather's ghost to stop yelling at me. And I probably did it. But I want you to see me, but you can't see me without seeing all of what's best and bright about Chicago, Illinois. And what it meant to Black Americans who aligned in yearning to migrate, man. And so it's a lot of burden. It's a lot to carry. It stabs at the resiliency myth in many ways because, we continually hold back forces in order to have the lives that we have. We're not resilient. We're just not like naturally bulletproof. We dodging the whole time, right?
Oh, yeah.
And now it's just, there's a nice time for me to share with people what it feels like. I probably, was a little more reticent at a Negro in an Ofe, but I look outside and I see people care about what's happening to me now. It feels good. Like it feels like I can take a chance, So yes, there's me. If you all like this one, there's more of me. Oh my God, book 3 is, you're gonna think it's about my love life. So, but Ace Boon Coon is about what makes a friend. And in writing it, I realized I needed to really search what I had to give to people to be friends. And I realized that even though I was hoping for me to get some, opportunities, and I'm tired of people holding me back, I was holding back. And, it hurts a little bit when you put personal stuff in your work, but if it lands, you make friends as soon as they read it. So yeah, it's me, but it ain't me, but it is.
Well, so all right. So it has some of your past in it and your history in it, but it's also 1950s Chicago and rural Illinois. So, so I mean, why not tell the story now? I mean, why set it back then? What can you do with the 50s that you can't do with today?
I can show you the solutions that we already used successfully to make the 70s and 80s so dope for Black people. We've forgotten. We've resolved all these things already. Look at me, man. Listen, I am genetically mulatto, and my grandfather was authentically mulatto, and that stuff ain't supposed to carry generations when my daddy married a Black woman. It's weird out here. We don't know what's going on. You don't know who your daddy is. You be thinking you German your whole life, then somebody tells you Scottish. You know what I mean? You were willing to die for some German stuff. You know what I mean? You living in Bridgeport.
Sure.
You living in Bridgeport, Chicago. You got a baseball bat. Oh, the Blacks moved across the street. They're going to ruin the neighborhood. Turn out you ain't even Irish. You take the 23andMe, you was going to die for some Irish stuff on the streets of Chicago. You're going to find out your mama was Spanish and lied to you. Like, come on, man. I mean, come on. Like, it's all in the batter now. It's all in the waffles, we're not all the same kind of American, and that's great. And what I can do by bringing you back to the 50s is to show you when whiteness perhaps was more of a nebulous definition, and Blackness was a true definition by force. And you'll see when left alone, sitting in their definition, inside segregation, how Black might become bronze. And we're publishing less Black authors now than we were when James Baldwin and Ralph Ellison was getting drunk and fist fighting in Spain. We're also graduating less Black doctors from medical school than we did in the 70s. We fixed this before. It's just the solutions keep getting away from us because of a lot of different types of economic sedition and tyranny against Black communities. Y'all starting to see it now, but dude, man, every time you looked at Black folks stumble and fall in the national landscape, what you missed was somebody tripping us right at the finish line again. And every 50 years, we go back to the end of the line. So if I catch you in the 50s when things were dope, when the language was dope, when the music was cool, when we was all grooving in the post-war, I'm thinking I'm gonna take you back to something that's gonna work today if you pick up on it. Because we fixed this, man. We fixed it.
So I'm really curious about the research piece of this for you. This Chicago feels so real reading it. So are you someone who have you just been reading this history for years and years? Are you someone who kind of dips in and out? Kind of how does the process work for you as a writer?
Well, my frame of reference is situated around being a little guy in a big old city. And, Chicago, sometime around 1971, when I was born, had the sense enough to teach real heavy civics lessons. And then by the time I saw The Untouchables, when I was like, in high school, that was it. My world is Chicago. Sort of like, every world is New York to somebody at DC Comics, Like every big city in my heart is Chicago. So, I lived in the library. I grew up in Carter G. Woodson Public Library. There were no restrictions on what a little kid could do in the adult section. So, you find yourself like reading the truth about your Chicago history. And, I come from a family that's been around Chicago for a while. So I can even find like my grandparents in some of these books. But hey, man, we got crime, we got shootouts. You want to find out about that kind of stuff. A book report in Chicago when you grew up learning about Al Capone in civics class, that's a dope book report, right? So the city was always interesting. Like my buddy Sheldon Lane, we made the movie 5150 with. He was my Ace Boon Coon back when we was trying to make a run at the film game. His mama had a 5-story house he bought from a mistress. They bought from a mistress of Al Capone on the south side of Chicago down the street from Army and Lou's restaurant. And when I was doing stand-up when I was 17, that was like 1980, that was like 1988. In 1988, Black Chicago still had 4 newspapers. So I knew about the city. I knew about the awareness of the city. And then, I started reading, books about the period and the time. I started reading Ibrahim X. Kendi's book about how to be a non-racist and started connecting to like movements that happened in the past. And then, if you have a robust intellectual history about Chicago, you're trying to find out where your own roots are. And I actually found a lot of inspiration off the doggone ancestry I got one year with the Father's Day discount. Because I found like my grandfather's birth certificate and stuff. And then I started reading annual reports from the FBI's annual report on white supremacist organizations back in the 50s. A Curl Your Hair, bro. I can send it to you if you want to see it. The Curl Your Hair. And then I researched quite heavily because we have Chicago police officers in the family. The Chicago Police Department archives are huge. You can read about all sorts of innovations that because the Chicago Police Department had the bodies and the numbers, they had the organizational heft necessary to create organizations that everybody in the world uses today in policing, including the International Federation of Women's Police, which was founded inside the Chicago Police Department's Women's Bureau. And they put out a book every year, talking to like 180-page book every year, typewritten, passing it out about what we do for the city of Chicago, how we police it, how many people we arrested every year for what. I mean, it's just dope. And then I spent a lot of time in the Newberry Library archives. The stuff's free, it's still here, and save the libraries. But I love Chicago, as in like a son of the city died in the wool. And so, you're constantly tested on this stuff. And I don't know, perhaps Chicago Public Schools was a self-validating experience. I don't know, but like, they really made my school sexy growing up. My schools really made my city sexy growing up, man. It was exciting, to be a part of a city that meant so much and carried so much varying opinion all over, right?
Right.
So it was hypnotic. And I was a little kid who was always a fan. And then I watched all the same movies and read all the same books as everybody else, but also Black crime and criminality that touched Black people's districts and borders. It became easier to write about that kind of stuff. So, I started reading a lot of Donald Goines and Iceberg Slim and finding parallels in the street. And then, the 70s was the time of the street gang. And then, so that got sexy. And then, you got all this journalism on the street. I'm a Mike Royko kind of guy. I'm a Studs Terkel kind of guy. I'm a Nelson Algren kind of guy. So it's Chicago, man. I'm biased. I mean, I love everywhere, but man, that city still got my number, bro. Really.
When you've got characters in this book who are real people, right? So yeah. These are you've written in, Estes Kefauver and I think I counted 5 people.
Oh yeah.
So, and I'm sure there are some that I missed. So talk about that. So why are you weaving in real people and not just name check, but they're in scene, in conflict. So what's the purpose to that? What's the utility of that? And what's the challenge of that?
Well, one, it helps me avoid tropes because I get away with some liberty, right? Because I put Elliot Caprice in a situation that may be relevant to someone's paths that they have to take to fulfill a certain logical step in what overall was a burgeoning movement for Negro civil rights, right? So like, in Chicago, which is the most major market in the world for black folks, black Americans at the time, Louis Armstrong gonna bump into Martin Luther King and Ralph Abernathy and Sylvia's when Elliot could be in a booth trying to mind his own business 4 tables away, right? Because it's an epicenter, right? It's like okay, so think of Game of Thrones. We all got to come to King's Landing to negotiate. Well, once upon a time, if you was black and trying to get something done in America, King's Landing was the shot. And at any given time, if you wanted to find a multitude of black folks in order to sell your brand new religion to, your prosperity cult to, if you want to recruit for the Urban League, right? If you want to start a new voter drive, or if you want to get in one of these African-American owned newspapers in Chicago to actually go out to the rest of black America all over the country, you got to come to Chicago to do it. So you will bump into like famous people and you'll know them. I'm telling you, man, this book came out. Everybody but R. Kelly called me to tell me congratulations. You know what I mean? It's just, you bump into people. Like at any time, like Mayor Jane Byrne and Muhammad Ali is leaving my house and my dad's like, mind your business. Like, I don't know what's going on. My grandfather's got all these famous people in his living room. I grew up around them cats. But at the same time, for black people, Chicago was our Mecca. It was our New York for a certain type of black person. Okay, a black person in New York always had a little something, because it's been there since forever. But Chicago was founded by a Haitian fella and some Native Americans who knew they had a good thing running. And so it became a workaday thing to be a Chicagoan. You rose up from nothing. It really was a place where if you wanted to get your hands dirty, you can build up something from nothing. And a lot of people met each other when they were all unfortunate, digging it up from the dirt.
Right.
And I met a lot of people, Elliot interacts with Elijah Muhammad because I kind of did, and I won't talk no more. I can't say everything. It's like big name people have always dipped in and out of my life. Bernie Mac was like my whole career mentor. I wouldn't have had nothing without that guy. And he's huge. And he was like Uncle Bernie to my kids when he come pick me up to go on tour. Man, the first 3 legitimate gigs in Hollywood I got, it was gigs Bernie didn't want until he told them to give it to me. If I tell a kid in Milwaukee, man, who's grew up stealing his dad's old Def Comedy Jam tapes, and he a little white boy who's got 5 minutes, and he's ready to go get out there and get on the road. If I tell that guy Bernie Mac gave me my first television audition, it might blow his mind. Really? Tell me more. So, maybe you'll want to check out black folks more. Maybe you'll want to dig black history more. I mean, I have rubbed shoulders with famous black people, but you're going to find famous black people got the same problems as poor black people. So you can talk to us. You can hang out with us. You can see what we got going on in the world. And then at the same time, if I make it sexy Forrest Gumpy style, you just might be interested more in black history as American history. Because if there's something to be proud about in black history, we all all Americans get to enjoy that,
Right.
Like, oh yeah. We all get to be proud of that amazing civil rights thing that happened. And if I do something sexy in the book to make you remember that there was a Maddie Smith Collin, who was a big columnist in black newspapers that took on black organized crime in Chicago in the 50s and made them afraid. If I bring up Frankie Muse Freeman, that President Obama gave a Presidential Medal of Freedom for before he left office, who was president of Sigmas and was a powerful civil rights attorney as a woman in St. Louis, in Missouri in like 1940 something, right? Not only will I make them sexy, but I'll remind you they're Americans that belong to you too. And I'll look cool because, I can do that Bill Cosby, education and entertainment thing.
Let me reach out a sec here, and for anybody who's got any questions, there's a chat function at the bottom of your screen. So just click that, and if you got a question, type it in here because we're running a little close on time. We got about 10 minutes to go here. So if you got some questions, think them up, type them in, and we'll try to get to them. What else did I have to? So let's talk a little bit about reading. What's the first book you read that really made an impact on you? The first book of fiction.
I don't know the truth, man. Why you be asking me questions that stump me?
The goal is to have this not be like every other interview you do.
Okay, cool. Because you know me, because you're my friend, right? And you've been looking after me since I got in this game and we met. So I'm gonna keep it real with you. It makes me really mad that anytime I want to read a superlative work of science fiction that'll make your eyeballs curl off your face, it's Walter Mosley's Blue Light. Overlooked.
That's a great book.
When I got to San Francisco to do this, San Fran was on fire. Pretty much how Walter's book talks about in the third act. And then if it ain't Walter, hi Walter. If it ain't Walter, it's Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, because I'm driving through that Los Angeles every time. I'm going back and forth in LA right now. And before then, my mind was surrounded by the Ray Bradburys. Before then, I was the Robert Heinleins. I was the Dean Koontzes.
So why aren't you writing science fiction?
Well, I do, but only short stories because I'm scared. So now that I've got a second mystery novel, I'm thinking that one of those cool short stories that I had done is going to make it into audiobooks soon. With my I see my audiobook co-producer Dina Becker is on. Her and I've been going through all these things to see if maybe one of these audiobooks will catch on. And if people like my science fiction, maybe I'll do a book of short stories next. I have something going on. I would like to write more, but I do believe since I'm living in the house that Elliot built, I kind of got to pay them bills too. So I wanted to get another novel done. Like I didn't want to be, I was kind of worried. Okay, honestly, I was kind of worried I'd suck the second time. I just wanted to get it done. Now that I wrote a successful mystery novel twice in a row, I might. But not until I just didn't avoid the sophomore jinx, you know? Like, it's just too new for me, man. I didn't have anything for the slush pile. When I met y'all, everybody's like, hey, what else you got? And I'm like, yeah, I got nothing. So, but my short story work has been great. And those two books inspire me. And I think those two books started a conversation. And I'm probably going to try to do something next year. But maybe it's only just a series of short stories for now. But I really love science fiction. And when Black folks write speculative science fiction or even like fantasy fiction, it blows my mind always. So, but it was those two. And, you know, man, honestly, man, Walter Mosley, his science fiction is on the level of a modern master, I think. He's the Ray Bradbury that we got right now. And Blue Light, if you can find it, buy it and read it. It's dope.
Well, it's not just his science fiction. I mean, Walter Mosley is an icon. And I mean, he's much less. I mean, those Easy Rawlings books, you can sort of draw a line from those books to your work. They're a bit more conventional, and they're certainly less angry than Elliot is, I got to say. Yeah, there's also Chester Himes is clearly a real influence on you. Those Harlem Detective books. It's my two favorite character names of all time, which are Coffin Ed and Gravedigger Jones.
Yes, the best ever. Because they are the distillation of the difficulties of Black policing on the Black police officer. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's funny. It's tongue in cheek. It's really dark and gritty. But then imagine if that was your day job. Yeah. You know what I mean? Not too good. And you mentioned Chester Himes. I'm going to do the cool thing and look up the cover for If He Hollers, Let Him Go. And show you the comparisons. Because you'll notice, if I can find the right cover image, you notice I took some liberties. That's what I was thinking, right? I was thinking it. Oh, man, Chester Himes, man. His work, you know, as a bisexual Black man, his inner yearnings, his angst, his burn. Yeah, man. Walter is cool. Like, Walter writes from a place like my older uncles would be like, baby boy, be cool, man. You're too mad, man. That's just the way it is, man. You got to slow down. Like, Walter's, when I see him at conferences and stuff, he's always real chill. Like, Danny, you taking this too seriously, man. You need to be cool. And then every time I hear that, I always think, well, Chester Himes would be turning over tables, man. So I'll be all right. Yeah, I like Chester.
And Walter Mosley is at a point in his career where he can be as cool as he wants to be.
He can.
It's a yeah, it's a he's at a different place.
Somebody asked me about influences, right? And like, so Bernie Mac legend, like, to his legend, like, he snatched the microphone when he couldn't get a good crowd in New York doing Def Comedy Jam for the first time. We were all scared of New York back in the Chi, right? It was like, man, my older brother was in New York, so I could see Brooklyn comedy clubs on accident. And I was used to it a little bit. But man, we were all scared of New York and LA, because if you go there and you bomb, it's over. And Bernie snatched the microphone out. I ain't scared of you, right? And then it was just like, we all looked at each other in the room and said, anybody write anything like that? Because if not, you're out of the game. He just took the mic and ran with it. And when Walter came along with Easy Man, I was struggling with, like, I was having a divorce. I was young. I signed up for the full boat. I was angry about stuff. Chicago was getting me down. And I started reading the Easy Rollins novels, man. And it was just like the black man's problem solving was just amazing. I had never seen another book that broke down how a black man's intellect, when he's in danger, lays out to his positive outcome before. And Walter just like told tales out of school on how cool black folks do it. And it was just like, it's like Walter Mosley and Easy Rollins is like Avery Brooks playing Hawk and Spencer for Hire. It's just, after that, mold, done. That's it. If you're not doing that, maybe you're not writing. I don't know.
Well, we do have a question in here. Let me see if I can pull this up here. The question is about a through line in place for your next book and the next. So talk to me about so you're so far, Elliot, has gone from, I think, 1952 to 1956.
No, 1952 to 1953, because I slowed it down, right? There'll be a book every year from 1952 that covers a major event in every civil rights, in every part of civil rights movement, for a civil rights movement history for the year. So in book one, everything is happening in one particular shadow. In book two, everything is happening in a particular shadow, with like RICO cases and the top hoodlum program. The FBI is now starting to break up communities to stop crime. Okay, 1953, in the backdrop, is going to be Brown versus Board of Education. I want to remind folks how new some of these things were. Like, if you're Martin Luther King and you want to go out and heal the world for everybody, black and white, who don't want to go out and do it for themselves, the hardest conversation you're going to have is with your wife and kids. We're not born to save America. Like, Martin Luther King got to go home to his father, who paid a grip for him to become a doctor in theology. You want to live poor, not help me with this church that has been in my family since slavery, and you want to go help black people be equal to white folks when we already doing fine by ourselves, leaving them alone. You really want to come into my house and tell me this, young man? That's what he's hearing. So I'm trying to get it back to that, right? Like, when the civil rights movement was just a whole bunch of lawsuits because people couldn't take it no more. That's sexy. That's sexy. I'm seeing that in other forms of entertainment. I'm seeing folks deconstructing the past with a contemporary view for the present, and it's looking pretty good on the HBOs and the Showtimes and all of that. We hungry. It's looking good. I like it. I don't know if I answered your question, but sometimes I go on too long.
So how is LA going to go other places, or is Chicago?
No, I got a question here from Bruce Landay, who's asking me the same thing. Do any of my books of personal history go through Detroit? All kinds of personal history goes through Detroit. I think my Aunt Leisha still holds some farmland up, and my grandfather in Benton Harbor, Michigan, when like the Black Hamptons was Benton Harbor, Michigan. My grandfather owned a hotel and stuff. So yeah, man, Elliot makes his way to Washington D.C. in a couple of books, because he has to testify about what he saw for Kefauver. And the whole thing goes, and then, man, I live in LA for the past 20 years, so I want Elliot to get involved in some Mickey Cohen type mess, but I don't want to
LA has a real role in the migration too.
Oh yeah, big time. And what's more, I want to leave the door open for other mystery writers coming along behind me, because if y'all like Ace Boon Coon and the Negro and Ofe, I mean, it's a bunch of writers who write historically set but contemporarily voiced, mysteries and crime fiction that has a more contemporized view of racial struggles, and that's all coming. Like, I just want to break some ground, so it's like because it's like 100 more Black kids at home like me. Like, we could have 1 million mysteries and still not sell them all. So, like, it's just really cool, like the migration paths. Elliot's got to go wherever Black folks went in the 50s for me to get born. So
Right.
At least he's going to do that. And then Elliot's going to be doing it for at least up until I'm born, which is 1970, 71. And that's like RICO trials. And, the Irish had started taking to whiteness. And now instead of working with the Chicago outfit, they're actually the judges and the lawyers that's coming after the Chicago outfit. He's trapped in the middle of that. I don't know. I want to keep writing them. I just do. So I wouldn't have him travel the globe. He's not James Bond, but I could squeeze a whole lot more fun out of Chicagoland.
Well, and it's a bigger story. I mean, I love the Chicago piece, and I love the way that you write about Chicago, but it's a bigger story than just Chicago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it'll be fun to see what you do with it. I think we're running out of time here.
Yeah.
I didn't get to ask you about Bronzeville Books. We didn't get to talk about kind of all the stuff you did between deaf comedy and a Negro and an Ofe. There's a lot more conversation to be had. So
I'm not going anywhere. We can all hang out. We're all on the social media. We can just do it anytime. But
yeah, we can.
what? I don't want anyone to forget. When you buy a copy of Ace Boon Coon, and I'm happy that you do, please check the acknowledgments page, and please read who gets the first mention on the acknowledgments page. That guy who just got finished talking to me in conversation. You Bernie Mac'd me, dog. Thank you. I have a career because of lovely friends and people who saw I was trying to do something different. So, and peace to Boswell.
Back at you. Nice to see you. Daniel, anything to add before we depart?
You said you didn't really get to talk enough about Bronzeville. Will you say just a few words about it? It is really
yeah. I'm happy. Bronzeville Books. I got together with a bunch of friends of mine and founded an imprint that is distributed by Big Ingram. And right now we are printing books, and we're going to start shipping new product out on Monday. So I know the industry is having a bit of a stutter step right now, but we're still going good. And if you keep buying Bronzeville Books, I'll keep talking about it. How about that?
So what's the mission of Bronzeville?
Oh yeah. Well, okay. In a nutshell, I am banking that a generation of racism-free fiction will help ensure a racism-free future. And so I have made acquisitions the past 3 or 4 years in mystery and crime, men's adventure, no romance yet, but maybe one day, a little bit of horror, and some sci-fi. And I am going to inspire a generation of people to read great American Blackness as if it is normal, and as if it is just one ingredient in a whole.
Just people.
But with the strength of heritage, same as all people. And but if we can get a generation of new opportunity in literature and fiction, then the genre fiction that inspires us as children will be racism free. And then, from the earth to the stars, we'll build Bronzeville on Mars. So I just want to give my grandkids an opportunity to read about life untainted by the racial lens. We could do it, I mean, hey man, I got all the Blackness in Ace Boon Coon you want to read, but I'm also trying to show that we are a monumental people. We are colossal people. Black folks are a cosmic people. We have much to provide you. And, Bronzeville is going to do that. Like I'm an explorer in the Black America, and these are my exports. How about that?
Well, it sounds great, Danny. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thanks to Boswell Books for having us. It's great to have such a fantastic hometown bookstore. So thanks, Boswell, and all you book buyers out there, you know what to do. Go buy some books.
Thank you so much, everybody. Hope to see you at another event. Continued success. And looking forward to Nick's book coming out. Yes. I think it's something like January, is it 12th?
12th. January 12th.
Very cool. Good night, everyone.
Thanks all.
All right, thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Danny.
Bye, babe.